So here's the question. After wading through nearly 400 pages of Magicians of the Gods, am I any more convinced that there may have been a super advanced lost civilization? Well, let's break it down. First, I think Hancock was wise to abandon Earth crust displacement and instead focus on the Younger Dryas comet as his cataclysm. The onset of the mini ice age, known as the Younger Dryas, is a legitimate geological mystery. Even mainstream geologists admit that it hasn't been entirely explained. The comet impact theory doesn't seem that far-fetched, but it is far from proven. Geologists are still having it out about this one. At this time, there are some very serious reasons to doubt the comet impact theory. But who knows? Maybe in a few years there will be enough evidence that the geological community will accept it as a fact. I am open to this. I just don't think we're there yet. So I will give Hancock this. There might have been a comet, and that's a big might. But there might have been a comet that hit the Laurentide ice sheet and caused sudden cataclysmic flooding that could have destroyed a civilization, if there was one. I will also concede that Gobekli Tepe is a pretty astounding sight. It has legitimately changed our understanding of the distant past. Despite the excellent work that's been done by archaeologists, there is still much we do not understand about this site. Now, I am convinced by the evidence that it was a hunter-gatherer society that built the massive structures at Gobekli Tepe. Still, I'll admit there's much to be learned. The art and architecture there is so impressive, and the site is just so old that I think it's reasonable to wonder about the details of its construction. I will also allow that sometimes myths do, in fact, contain grains of historical truth. Heck, that's essentially the thesis statement of this entire podcast series. How many times have I demonstrated that something that was thought of as purely legendary often had a parallel in real history? In short, I'm okay with the fact that Hancock uses myth. But friends, that's as much as I'm going to give Hancock. I find pretty much everything else in his book completely unconvincing. As I hope I've demonstrated a number of times in this episode, so much of Hancock's hypothesis is based on a type of stream of consciousness logic. It flows like this. On Pillar 43, there is a vulture. You know who else were sometimes described as bird-like? The Watchers from the Book of Enoch. Those guys were described as semi-divine teachers of civilization. So therefore, the vulture on Pillar 43 could maybe represent a semi-divine teacher of civilization. Therefore, the vulture on the pillar means the magicians of the gods were real. Whew. This, my friends, is what we call a logical fallacy. It sounds like logic, it's arranged like logic, but the premises do not necessarily support the conclusion. But in a way, this is Hancock's great gift. He overwhelms his readers with arguments such as these. He gives you so much data to pick through that finding every soft piece of logic and every unsupported leap can become exhausting. His writing has a way of making you submit to it. If you weren't reading Magicians of the Gods incredibly critically, the sheer mass of data he pours on you might just convince you that he's right, or at least onto something. You can easily get lost trying to unpack complex arguments about the precessions of the stars before you realize that none of it matters if his central claim that a vulture carving is meant to represent a constellation is false. Altogether, there's no hard evidence that Hancock's Atlantis-like global civilization existed. Now, there are certainly gaps in our understanding where perhaps a lost civilization might be hiding, but everything he presents as positive evidence of this culture is deeply speculative, and honestly, not that compelling. It's too bad, because a super advanced lost civilization is such a cool idea. I understand why people like it. But in this case, it doesn't seem to matter how much I fuss with my decoder ring. Some things just don't make sense.